So I talked about this many, many times, and we all know about the European Union that's trying to sanction us, economic sanction us. Imagine in Brussels, a foreign country, a foreign empire, trying to say to us that we must implement hate speech laws in this country. Imagine telling that to the people 100 years ago, in 1916. Their ideal was the only people who have any sovereignty and has any right to discuss anything or implement anything in this country is the Irish Republic. What I mean to say, Dáil Éireann and Shannon Éireann. They're the only people who have any rights over this country. Brussels has no right to tell us what to do and how to do it. And first of all, this is the worst thing, to silence our own people, to shut our own people up. They cannot do this. And the Irish government will follow willy-nilly because they are afraid. And they're too afraid to say anything. Simple as that, because there's a global agenda pretty much to try and shut people up, Western societies, to limit free speech, to silence people. Again, let's be under no illusions. It's not about protecting people's minds and stuff like that, about hate speech and stuff, and about harmful speech and stuff. It's all about shutting dissent. It's all about stopping questions. It's all about that. Let's be fair. Because it is a slippery slope. First of all, it's your freedom of speech. Next thing would be the freedom of assembly. Because these hate speech bills, it's a huge amount of power. And again, as the Irish Constitution says it very, very clearly, that you have unlimited rights to speak your mind. Obviously, with some exceptions, of course. You can't go into burning buildings into buildings and start shouting fire take, for example. You can't do that. And that's obviously goes without saying that. But, as the Constitution says, the only person who can take away your right to freedom of expression is Almighty God. When you drop from this earth, when you die from this earth. That's the only time your voice is silent. When you die from this planet. And we will not let that change. We can't let it change, as simple as that. Because it won't be you and me that will suffer. That's watching this video at the moment. It'll be our children that are not even born yet. They will suffer the most. And we owe it to them, the people that are not even born now. We owe it to them to make sure they live in a republic. That they can speak their mind freely. Without fear of being arrested. Without fear of being prosecuted. We can't allow that. We simply cannot allow this in this country to be implemented. We simply cannot. Because, as I say, it won't be us. It'll be our children that will suffer. And their children will suffer. Because we see how the state has become anti-Irish and has tried to destroy the state from inwards, not a foreign country, not a foreign empire, but internally. The Irish government is trying to destroy us, the Irish nation. And it's simple as that, and there's no other way of putting about it. You look at everything that's happening around this country. They're doing their worst. They're doing their worst to the Irish people. They are trying to do their worst. There's no such thing as they're doing their best. Because they're not doing their best, let's be fair. They're not. They're doing their worst on the Irish people. And you just look around and you see. But this hate speech bill, it cannot be let pass, whatever happens. And as I say, especially, the only thing, unless they go to the people. But again, the people will tell them overwhelmingly, no, fuck you. And excuse my language, but that's what they would say to them. And rightly so, because that's what needs to be said to our politicians at the moment. No, we won't accept it, fuck you. And stick it up your hole, excuse my language, but that's where they can stick it. The hate speech bill. And the same with the European Union, they can stick it up the hole if they want it. Excuse my language, but that's where they can stick it. Telling a sovereign country what to do and then threatening them. Because it is not democracy, let's be fair. That's not democracy. Saying you must do this or we will sanction you. Because, that's not democracy. Democracy is when you ask the people of the country, do they want to implement this or do they not? That's democracy. Being told you must do this. And again, the Irish government should be saying to the European, no, we won't do this. How dare you tell us to do this? To silence our own people, to shut our own people up. We will not tolerate it. We fought 800 years to be free. And by God, and I say this to people too, I'm not willing to give it up. They have to lock me up for 5 million years to shut me up. Because I won't shut up. And nobody in this country should shut up. We shouldn't be afraid of the law if they do implement this. That we will challenge it, we will cause almighty chaos to the Irish state. Because the Gardaí be full-time enforcing this hate speech bill instead of real crime. They'll be too busy worrying about thought crime. And that's what it's all about. It's all about enforcing thought crime. Let's be fair, having opinions. Like, imagine, it's when you really sit down and think about it, it's quite insane that, this is the top priority of the Irish state. It's homeless people. It's people literally dying because they can't get operations. But, top priority hate speech bill. Policing people's speeches. It doesn't make much sense, but logic doesn't exist, as I say, in the Western democracies. Because it's not just in Ireland, it's across the Western world. We see governments trying to silence their people. Their own people. Not foreign people, but their own people. And it might most clearly just anti-Irish what this government's doing. But as I say to people, we simply cannot let this happen. And again, I say it straight to you. I'm not the type of person that wants to fearmonger people. Say this will happen and that will happen, and you could do this and this could happen and that could happen. But I'm saying the truth because it is a slippery slope. Once you give them an inch, they will take a half a mile. They will take a mile. They will take a trillion miles. Because when you give lunatics and people that willingly deceive us, willingly hate us, and willingly want to destroy us, if you give them an inch, they will take everything. And I'm not saying that to make people afraid, because there's nothing to be afraid of. If we stand up to this, if everybody stands against it, there's no way they can do it. Because there's no way. There's simply no way. But I say to people, we owe it not to ourselves, but to our children, because they will suffer the most if this passes. And we simply cannot let this happen in this country. We simply can't. And we have to do everything in our human powers to stop this from ever passing in this country. And again, the only way they can bring it in, if they ask the Irish people, what do they take in a referendum. But as I say, they're never going to do that because they get their answer. And they won't want the answer, they won't like the answer. But it's going to be the answer, one way or the other, simple as that. But as I say, democracy is a very fragile thing. And again, we fought for 800 years to have that flag behind me, to have that fly. We fought for 800 years for this, so we will not give it up that handy. And I can assure the Irish government of that, I can assure TDs of that, and especially TDs, if you have any kind of conscience, if this ever does go to vote in Dáil Éireann, if you have any kind of conscience at all, again, these people have no conscience. The money talks for them, and that's the only thing they care about. They don't care about the good of the country, the good of the people. They care about the money. Thank you.